You won't believe what one man dared to do in the face of hate. Imagine this. A warm summer evening in a small southern town, flags flapping, a crowd gathered, not to celebrate love but to divide. And right in the middle of it, a black man walks into the heart of the storm, drops to one knee and does something no one expected. Not them. Not her. Not even himself. What happens next will leave you breathless. This is not a fairy tale. This is America. And his name is David. David Carter was never a man to back down. Raised in a mixed but tense neighborhood of Jackson, Mississippi, he knew early on that some lines were drawn not in chalk but in concrete. He was a proud son of a schoolteacher and a Vietnam veteran, with a quiet sense of strength and a stubborn belief in doing what's right, even when it hurts. At 32, he'd built a life that could make his mother proud. A job as a high school history teacher, an apartment filled with books and vinyl records, and a heart held tightly by the woman he loved, Emily Lawson. Emily was everything David wasn't supposed to have, according to the town's whispers. She was white, the daughter of one of the oldest families in the county. Her father, Jim Lawson, had run for city council 3 times on a platform that was about preserving our heritage, and everyone knew what that meant. But Emily had never inherited that hatred. She was fire and curiosity, a woman who taught literature by day and organized local poetry slams by night. And despite everything, they had found each other, held on to each other, loved each other. For 3 years they lived in quiet defiance. No loud declarations, no Instagram drama, just quiet resistance in every soft kiss and every shared morning coffee. But then came August 12th. That day wasn't supposed to mean anything. It was a Saturday. Hot, sticky, unremarkable, until the trucks started pulling into the square. Until the flags started rising. Confederate flags. Gadsden flags. A sea of red hats and angry eyes. A protest, they said, about heritage, not hate. But the signs didn't lie. And neither did the chants. Take our country back. You will not replace us. The same ugly echoes David remembered from the news out of Charlottesville years ago. Only this time it wasn't on a screen. It was his hometown. His block. His grocery store. Emily wanted to leave town that weekend. David told her no. He had plans. He had bought the ring weeks ago, small, modest, tucked away in his sock drawer. He had called her mother, whispered the plan. He had picked the exact spot. The statue in the center of the square, the same one they passed every Saturday, the one they always joked should come down. One day, David had said. One day we'll replace it with something worth remembering. He didn't expect that today would be that day. He ironed his shirt slowly, the way his father taught him. Blue button down, sleeves rolled. Emily was at the bookstore, unaware. He rehearsed what he would say. He drove to the square alone. When he arrived, the crowd was already shouting. Dozens deep. Faces red from heat and rage. A preacher barked into a megaphone about keeping God's country pure. A group of men in camo and sunglasses scanned the sidewalks like it was a war zone. Someone lit a smoke flare. The air stank of sweat and gasoline and fear. David stood at the edge for almost a full minute. No one saw him at first. One black man in a crowd of hundreds. He walked slowly, deliberately toward the center of the chaos. Toward that statue. Toward the podium where someone had just screamed about erasing history. People began to notice. Someone yelled. A man in wraparound sunglasses stepped in front of him, blocking his path. You lost, boy? David didn't flinch. He kept walking. Around him people parted, or didn't. A shoulder hit his. Someone spat. Another man raised a camera. Then from behind him a voice, David? Emily. She had followed him. She pushed through the crowd, hair wild, eyes wide with panic. What are you doing? She hissed. We need to go, David, come on. He turned to her, took her hands and smiled. Not yet. He walked up the steps to the statue. The crowd erupted, boos, curses, jeers. A can bounced off the pavement beside him. Another flew past his ear. But David stood tall. And then he knelt. One knee. Right there. In front of the statue of a Confederate general. In front of a crowd of hate. He pulled the box from his pocket, opened it with trembling fingers. The crowd fell into a strange hush. Emily Lawson, he said, voice shaking but loud. You are my heart. You are my peace. You are the reason I still believe in change. She covered her mouth. Tears welled. I want to spend every day showing this world that love is louder. That history doesn't own us. That the future is ours if we choose it. Will you marry me? A long silence. And then chaos. Someone screamed, "Get the hell out of here." A bottle shattered. Another flare went off. A surge in the crowd pushed forward. Emily screamed his name. David stood trying to protect her. Men rushed the steps. Police began moving in too late. And that's when it happened. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. There are moments when time breaks. When every sound fades and all you can hear is your own heartbeat, wild and panicked like a trapped bird in your chest. That's where David was, standing between Emily and the surge of bodies, a ring box still clenched in his left hand, his right arm outstretched like a human shield as hate charged forward. The scream came first. It wasn't from David or Emily or even the crowd. It was from the woman in the back, an older Black woman holding a folded church fan and a Bible, who had wandered into the crowd by accident while visiting her cousin's deli. "Jesus, help them," she cried out as the first punch flew. David didn't see who threw it. All he knew was the explosion of pain in his jaw, the taste of blood in his mouth, and the sudden blur of pavement rushing up to meet him. Emily dropped to her knees beside him, screaming his name, her hands fluttering helplessly over his face. Someone shouted, "Get the girl." The crowd swelled like a living beast, ugly and loud, but something changed in the air, a crackle, a shift. From the edges of the square came more voices, louder, angrier, not with hate but with resistance. "Leave them alone." A group of counter-protesters had arrived. They had signs, cameras, megaphones. One young man in a hoodie ran forward and shoved back the nearest attacker. "You want a fight?" he barked. "Fight someone your own size." Chaos turned into a clash. Fists flew. Screams echoed. A smoke grenade exploded. David, still dazed, grabbed Emily's wrist and pulled her to her feet. "Run," he gasped. But they didn't make it far. Two men blocked their path, one with a shaved head, one with a GoPro strapped to his chest. The GoPro guy sneered. "This'll make good footage." Emily stepped in front of David, face pale with fury. "You want to be remembered for assaulting a woman in a wedding proposal? Go ahead." The GoPro guy hesitated, and that's when sirens split the air. Blue lights. Bullhorns. Riot shields. "Everyone get on the ground. Now." Police stormed the square, pushing people back with batons and tear gas. The mob scattered like roaches under light. Some were tackled. Some disappeared. In the smoke and screams, David and Emily collapsed against a marble bench, coughing and shaking. Minutes passed like hours. Eventually an officer approached them. Young Black, breathing hard, his badge barely visible through the haze. "You all right?" he asked. David nodded. "I proposed." The officer blinked. "Now?" David held up the ring box with a shaky smile. "Had to be now." Emily laughed, one short, broken laugh that turned into a sob. She kissed David's bloody forehead. "Of course I said yes," she whispered. "Of course. It should have ended there. It didn't." The footage went viral within hours. The video showed everything. David's walk, the proposal, the attack, Emily's defiance, the chaos, the hate, and then the love. It spread across Twitter, TikTok, cable news. Some called David a hero. Others called him reckless. The internet did what it does, spun stories, picked sides, amplified the extremes. Reporters knocked on their apartment door the next morning. Emily's father called for the first time in 6 months, demanding she come home, before you destroy this family's name. David's principal left a voicemail that was full of concerns. But what no one expected was what happened next. 3 days after the proposal, a letter arrived. No return address. Hand-delivered. Inside, a single piece of paper with one sentence. "You think this is over?" No signature. No logo. Just a small red fingerprint at the bottom. David stared at it for a long time. Emily called the police. They said it could be a prank or just someone trying to stir the pot. They offered to keep an eye out. But the next day another note came. This time taped to their apartment door. "Next time we won't miss." David changed their locks. Bought cameras. Emily stopped sleeping. The engagement ring sat on her finger like a target. By Friday, David knew what he had to do. He dug out his father's old army box. Inside was a folder, yellowed papers, medals, a battered leather notebook, and something else. A letter. Written by his father decades ago. About his own experience standing up to hate. The parallels were eerie. Almost exact. Names changed. Faces different. But the same forces, generation after generation. At the bottom of the letter were 6 words. If they want to fight, lead. David stood in front of his mirror and said it out loud. If they want to fight, lead. He called a press conference. He told Emily first. She cried, begged him to think twice. I have, he said. My whole life. And so, under the burning Mississippi sun, David stood in front of cameras again, only this time by choice. Not as a victim. Not as a lover. But as a leader. I'm not backing down, he said. This isn't just about me and Emily. It's about all of us who have been told to sit down, shut up, love quietly, and never challenge the past. I'm here to say no more. The clip went viral again. People called him brave. A troublemaker. A political pawn. A civil rights hero. A fool. And then, the phone rang. Unknown number. David picked up. A voice on the line. It. Familiar. You should have stayed quiet, it said. Click. He looked at Emily. Her face was pale. What did they say? David's voice was low. They know about the wedding. Emily's eyes widened. It's in 6 weeks, she whispered. How would they know? David opened the email he just received. It was a photo. Of the 2 of them. Taken from across the street. That morning. And in the bottom corner of the image was a handwritten date. October 15th. Their wedding day. And beneath it, just one word. Boom. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. There are threats, and then there are promises. The photo David opened that morning was not a threat. It was a promise. A quiet, deliberate promise that someone was watching. That someone knew. And that someone was waiting for October 15th, not to celebrate love, but to end it. David stared at the screen, his hands cold, jaw tight. The image had been taken from across the street, likely through a long lens. It was him and Emily, exiting the coffee shop near their apartment. Laughing. Holding hands. Oblivious. And in the corner that word, boom. Emily didn't cry this time. She just sat down slowly as if her body had suddenly remembered gravity. We need to cancel, she said, her voice flat. We need to postpone the wedding. Or leave. But David had already stood up. Already pacing. We do that, he said, and they win. David, she said softly, this isn't a story anymore. This isn't some viral moment. This is real. I'm not losing you for a statement. He stopped pacing and turned toward her. I'd rather be hated standing up than loved on my knees. Then what do we do? She asked. David exhaled. We find out who they are. The next week passed like a fever dream. David reached out to an old friend from college, Jamal Price, now a digital forensics consultant in Atlanta. Jamal had always been the tech guy back in school, hacking into campus Wi-Fi, rerouting IDs. Now he worked with real cases: fraud, cybercrime, political blackmail. When David explained what was happening, Jamal didn't hesitate. Send me everything. David forwarded the photo. The note. The caller ID logs. Jamal got to work. Meanwhile, Emily's parents released a statement condemning the dangerous escalation surrounding their daughter's personal decisions, but not a single mention of David's name. The local news ate it up. Suddenly, the proposal wasn't just viral, it was controversial. The kind of story that divides dinner tables. David's school put him on leave. For your safety, they said. Emily's bookstore was spray-painted at 2:17 a.m. with the word "Traditor." A spelling mistake. But the message was clear. And then Jamal called. I traced the photo's metadata, he said. It was sent from an encrypted relay, probably bounced through a dozen IPs. But one thing stood out. David waited. There's a watermark. Faint. Embedded into the lower pixel band. Not visible to the naked eye unless you know what to look for. It's a digital signature. David's voice was tight. Whose? Jamal paused. Not sure yet. But the software used to embed it, it's military grade. Not something you get on the open internet. David's blood ran cold. What are you saying? He asked. I'm saying this isn't just some angry neighbor with too much time. Whoever's behind this, they have resources. Real ones. And they're watching you. David thanked him and hung up. Emily was in the kitchen staring out the window. They found the source, he said. She didn't turn around. Do we go to the police again? They won't do anything until something happens. So we wait to be attacked, she said, spinning to face him, tears brimming. No, he said. We go public. Again. She laughed bitterly. Again? He nodded. We live-stream the wedding. Emily blinked. We make it impossible for them to act without being seen. 100,000 eyes. They want shadows, we give them daylight. That'll only make us a bigger target, she said. We already are, David replied. So let's be a moving one. The announcement went up 2 days later. October 15th live wedding broadcast love over hate. David and Emily posted a video. Calm, poised, clear. This is not just about us, David said into the camera. This is about refusing to hide. We invite the world to witness not a political act, but a human one. A commitment. The video got millions of views. Celebrities reshared it. Civil rights organizations offered support. A security firm reached out offering protection at cost. Anonymous donations poured in. But so did the threats. Hundreds of emails. You won't make it to the altar. TikTok. One arrived with a funeral brochure attached. For David. Open casket. And then, silence. The threats stopped. No new emails. No new calls. For 6 days. Emily hoped it meant they'd moved on. David didn't believe it for a second. They're planning something. October 13th arrived. Jamal called again. I dug deeper, he said. That digital signature from the photo, it's tied to a private intelligence contractor. Small firm. Ex-military. Not officially listed anywhere, but I traced 3 clients through leaked documents. One of them is the Lawson Foundation. David froze. Emily walked into the room just in time to see the color drain from his face. What? She asked. He looked at her. Your family's charity. It's one of the clients. She shook her head. That's impossible. My father might be who he is, but he wouldn't do something like this. David didn't answer. Just stared. Emily stepped back. You think my father sent that photo? That he's behind all this? I don't know, David said. But someone close to you is. She turned away, stunned. No, David. He may hate us together, but not like this. David stood up. We need to talk to him. They drove to her parents' estate the next morning. It was Emily's first time back in over a year. Her mother met them at the door, eyes puffy, hesitant. He's in the study, she whispered. The study hadn't changed. Dark wood panels. Smell of cigars. Jim Lawson sat in a leather chair, reading a paper with headlines about his daughter. He looked up slowly. Well, he said. The revolutionaries return. David stepped forward. Did you send the photo? Jim folded the paper. What photo? David tossed it on the desk. This one. Jim picked it up, scanned it, and smiled. You think I'd be stupid enough to sign my name to something like that? Emily snapped. Are you saying you did it? He looked at her. I'm saying if I wanted to stop this wedding, I wouldn't need threats. I'd just wait. Wait for what? David asked. Jim leaned back, eyes sharp. For one of you to break. David's fists clenched. Emily turned to him. We're done here. They left. October 15th arrived. The venue, a public park in Memphis, was heavily secured. Private security. Police presence. Drones overhead. Over 600 guests in person. Over 4 million watching live. David stood at the altar, heart pounding. Emily walked down the aisle in a simple ivory dress, the sun behind her, wind in her hair. Every camera captured every step. And then, she reached him. The pastor smiled. We are gathered here. Boom. The ground shook. Screams. Smoke from the north edge of the park. Chaos. David grabbed Emily. Get down? Another explosion, this one smaller. Controlled. Security radios crackled. We've got a breach, North Gate, repeat, armed breach. Emily screamed. David. David turned. And standing 10 feet away on the edge of the crowd, was a man in a black tactical jacket, holding a small black device in one hand, and pointing straight at David with the other. A red laser dot lit up David's chest. Then the man said one word, loud enough to be picked up on a dozen live stream mics. Tick. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Tick. One word. One sound. One heartbeat away from devastation. David froze. The red laser sight on his chest pulsed like a warning light in a burning building. The man in the tactical jacket stood still, expression calm, eyes hidden behind black glasses, his hand lightly resting on the trigger of something small and horrifying. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Livestream comments exploded, viewers from around the world typing frantic messages, some thinking it was a hoax, others begging for someone to intervene. Emily screamed David's name. Security swarmed from every direction, but too slowly, too far. David didn't blink, didn't breathe. Every instinct told him to run, to drop to the ground, to disappear, but instead he stood tall. Just like his father once did. Just like every man who ever had to choose between fear and something greater. The man smiled. Just slightly. Then he said it again. Tick. And disappeared into the crowd. Pandemonium. People ran, screamed, ducked under chairs. The smell of smoke from the earlier blast still lingered in the air. Sirens in the distance. David turned to Emily, white dress streaked with dirt, hair wild, eyes wide with tears. Security locked down the park within minutes. Bomb squad robots were dispatched. Helicopters swarmed above. The ceremony was over, but the nightmare had just begun. 2 hours later, David and Emily sat in the back of a Homeland Security SUV, wrapped in blankets, separated from the chaos. Neither spoke. A female agent, late 40s, sharp eyes, leaned in from the front seat. We believe the man you saw is tied to a paramilitary group. Private. Not officially recognized. Same group your friend Jamal linked to the photo. We've had an eye on them for years. But this was calculated. David finally spoke. Why us? The agent looked at him. Because you embarrassed them. Because you stood up in public. Because you showed love in a place built on hate, and they don't know how to kill that without trying to make you disappear. Emily whispered, they said tick. Twice. What does that mean? The agent frowned. We think it's part of their messaging. Symbolic. It means, time's running out. Emily's voice shook. Out for what? The agent looked between them. That's what we need to find out. The next 48 hours passed in a blur. David and Emily were moved to a secure safe house in Nashville. Blank walls. Monitored phones. One guarded exit. David hated every second of it. He wasn't used to feeling helpless. Jamal kept calling with updates, tracking online forums, deep web threats, chatter about something big coming soon. But it was something else Jamal discovered that changed everything. A name. Thomas Reeve. Ex-Special Forces. Dishonorably discharged. Worked for 3 different security firms before starting his own consulting group, specializing in what they called tactical heritage enforcement. Translation. Organized domestic terror under the banner of culture. Jamal sent David a blurry photo. It was him. The man at the wedding. The one with the laser. The one who said tick. But there was more. Thomas Reeve had once worked security for the Lawson Foundation. Specifically, for Jim Lawson. Emily read the email and went silent. David watched her carefully. What does that mean? She looked up. It means my father lied to us. They left the safe house that night. Against orders. Against every warning. But Emily had made up her mind. We don't find out what this is, she said, we'll never be free. And they'll always have the next tick ready. They drove straight to her parents' estate, headlights off for the last mile. It was nearly midnight. Lights were on inside. David gripped the wheel like it was the only solid thing in his world. Emily marched to the front door, pounded twice. Her mother answered. I's tired. Emily, what are you doing here? You're not safe. No, Emily said. But I need to see him. Her mother hesitated. Then opened the door wider. They found Jim Lawson in the same study. Same leather chair. Same cold scotch in his hand. This time he didn't pretend. I warned you, he said. I told you I'd just wait. Emily didn't blink. Who is Thomas Reeve? Jim's mouth twitched. You mean my former security contractor? You mean the man who tried to kill us? Jim sighed. Reeve's a man who understands that this country was built a certain way. On order. On legacy. You two are chaos. You want to tear it all down. David stepped forward. You hired him to watch us, didn't you? I hired him to protect this family's name. Emily's voice cracked. You tried to have us killed. Jim stood. No. I never gave that order. Then who did? She asked. He paused. Then looked her dead in the eye. I stepped away. Told him to do what he thought necessary. I didn't want to know the details. You let someone else pull the trigger, David said. But the blood would still be on your hands. Jim looked away. History's always written in blood. Emily shook her head. You're going to turn yourself in. No, he said quietly. I'm going to save what's left of this family. Then he reached down and pressed something under the desk. A silent alarm. David grabbed Emily. We're leaving. Now. They ran. As they got to the car, David's phone buzzed. A text from Jamal. Urgent. Just decrypted the second message. It's not about you two. It's about the wedding itself. David's hands went cold. He dialed Jamal. What do you mean? Jamal's voice came fast, panicked. The explosion wasn't the plan. It was a warning. The real target is everyone who watched. David froze. What? They embedded a virus. Malware. The live stream, they hacked it. Every person who watched, every phone, every device, they have access. They're going to activate it during a national broadcast. Use the wedding to launch something bigger. Emily stared at him. They're using us. They're going to take down the grid, Jamal continued. Phones, banks, hospitals, military access. It's already planted in the devices. David's voice was barely a whisper. When? A beat. Then Jamal said. In 24 hours. During the rebroadcast. They call it Operation Tick. David looked up, blue and red lights already screaming down the road behind them. Emily clutched his arm. What do we do now? David looked into the rearview mirror and said, we stop the broadcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Tick. That sound haunted David like thunder rolling in the distance, just beneath the skin of the world. Not loud enough to wake the masses, but deep enough that those who truly listened, those who paid attention, knew something was coming. Something massive. Something engineered. And now it had a name, Operation Tick. A plan not just to silence one man or stop one wedding, but to hijack a moment of unity, twist it, and burn the system from the inside out. The wedding wasn't the bomb. It was the fuse. David and Emily didn't sleep that night. There was no time. They drove north, staying off major highways, dodging phone pings, passing between counties like ghosts. Jamal kept feeding them data. Servers traced, hacker fingerprints found, IPs burned through backdoors. The malware was planted during the live stream just like he said. Thousands of devices compromised. Millions maybe. The rebroadcast, scheduled for 8 p.m. that night, was the kill switch. If it aired, the virus would spread to new systems. AI algorithms. Newsrooms. Military infrastructure. All under the radar. And at the center of it all? A couple who just wanted to get married. By 7:10 p.m., David and Emily were parked outside the Central Broadcast Hub in Louisville, one of the last satellite centers capable of rerouting a national broadcast before it went live. They had no invitation, no clearance, no backup. Just Jamal in their ear and each other. David checked his watch. 7:11. Emily looked at him. We end it tonight. He nodded. Or they end everything. They got in through the loading dock. Emily had spent years working in libraries. She knew how to find patterns, backdoors, flaws, and routines. David distracted the security guard by faking a fall on the opposite side of the facility. Emily slipped in. One camera missed her. She found the control room by following cables. Floors buzzing with fluorescent light. Techs everywhere, some prepping for the rebroadcast, some glued to their phones, unaware they were about to become pawns. At 7:21, David joined her. They barricaded the door behind them and pulled the fire panel, locking out outside access for 90 seconds. Jamal, David whispered into his earpiece, you're up. Pause. Then, okay. Plug me into port C. I'll do the rest. Emily slid a flash drive into the main console. Monitors flickered. Jamal's scripts took over. One screen after another began to shut down. But then, alarms. They'd been spotted. A security team pounded on the locked door. This is a restricted area. Open up immediately. David looked to Emily. She reached into her jacket, pulled out the ring box. "Let's finish what we started," she said. 7:27 p.m. Jamal's voice cut in. "I've got the malware contained. Isolated in a false cloud loop. I just need 30 more seconds." David grabbed the master switch and flipped it. The rebroadcast signal was cut. Every station in the country that had cued the wedding stream went dark, cut to emergency broadcast tones, then a black screen. People at home were confused. Some angry. Some scared. But the virus? It had nowhere to go. It died in darkness. 8:06 p.m. The FBI raided the original group's hideout in Wyoming. Thomas Reeve wasn't there. But they found documents, names, plans, funding sources, including bank transfers from Jim Lawson's private account. Within hours, news broke. A political scandal. A terror plot. An attempt to hijack national infrastructure masked behind a viral wedding. And at the center of it, two people who refused to play dead. David and Emily went public one last time. No more viral stunts. No drama. Just a simple video, filmed from a phone, posted to social media. David spoke first. "You don't defeat hate with rage. You defeat it by refusing to give it your silence. You defeat it with truth. With love. With your feet planted and your eyes open." Emily added, "They tried to turn our wedding into a weapon. We turned it into a shield. And that means something." Then David knelt again, this time in their small apartment in a clean shirt, with no cameras watching but their own. "Will you marry me?" he asked softly. "Again?" She laughed through tears. "Yes," she said. And this time they did. 2 weeks later, in a small park surrounded by real friends, family, and complete strangers who had become allies, David and Emily exchanged vows under an open sky. No security. No live stream. Just peace. And when they kissed, no one cheered. They just stood and cried. Because in a world that tried to tear them apart, they held the line, and chose each other. And that is what people remembered. Not the explosions. Not the hate. But the choice. The love. And the refusal to disappear. Love is not just a feeling. It's resistance. It's risk. It's a promise made louder than hate and stronger than fear. In a world that tells you to stay quiet, love loudly. In a world that tries to erase you, take up space. Because history doesn't just belong to those who build statues. It belongs to those who dare to kneel and rise when it matters most. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.